Hello, everybody, and welcome to the American Scouser post-match show. I don't know what you want to call it today. It's one of those days. I am your host, Timucin, as always, and with me today, we have our nerd of the sites, nerdy by nature. Vijay is with us. Vijay, what's going on, man?
Not much. How are you?
Oh, man, I could be better. I could be better. If
I'm right there with you.
The game, if it was just a 1-1 draw, I didn't think it was the end of the world. I know there were a bunch of people online, we have to win this game if you want to win the title, kind of over exaggerations and things like that. And that was not really the case. I thought it's just the way that 1-1 happened is probably more disappointing than anything. What is your general feeling afterwards?
100% agree. Chelsea is a very good team. They are whether I like saying it or not, and I hate saying it, they're the champions of Europe. And so,
that hurts.
I know it does hurt, right? But playing the champions of Europe at home, if I was just looking at the results over the course of a season and I saw that Liverpool drew Chelsea at home 1-1, I'd have been like, okay, it happens. It's early in the season. Transfer window isn't closed yet. Lukaku just came. That's great. That's fine. It's not what I would like because at home we should try to win every game, but I get it. But to draw that way, I almost said to lose that way. To draw that way was very disappointing because at the end of the day, we had a full half of football going into the Cup. And I'm one of these big believers in, I may be the nerd and I may be the stats and analytics guy, but I'm a huge believer that when you're in Anfield with people going towards the Cup, the momentum's on our side. And that we didn't turn that into at least one goal is very disappointing. So to me, it's a disappointing game for sure.
Yeah, because that's like the biggest thing I feel of this season is the fact that we have the fans, and it's like the ideal scenario, right? You're going against them, you're going to that side. You almost feel that the Cup will suck that ball in one way or the other. And really, if you look at it, we had the possession, but you can. Give credit to Chelsea. They were pretty darn compact over there, and they just did not let us get as many chances as we probably should. And we'll go back to the performances and the whys and stuff like that, as well as some of the numbers, since when we have the nerdy by nature over here, we have to talk numbers. So let's start with the lineup, though. So I know on the podcast when we talked, and we really did not expect Elliott to start. I don't think there's anything else shocking from that. We kind of assumed Robertson would be in, and we'll go back to Robertson and talk about him a little bit later on.
Agreed.
But, anything? Were you expecting Elliott to be out there? I know when we were talking about the podcast earlier in the week, we really did not.
I really thought, to me, the best lineup would have been, and let me step back before I say anything, because Elliott, I don't want to go too far ahead, but I think Elliott may have been the man of the match for me. But I would have predicted either Keita or Thiago in that spot because I really thought with the way Chelsea was going to play with the back three, having a guy like Thiago or having a guy like Keita who can ping the ball around and find spots that other people will not would have been helpful. And what ended up happening, to me at least, is that Elliott did that, but Henderson didn't. And so we can talk more about Henderson, but I thought Thiago or Keita would have been a better choice pregame. I don't think that now, but I definitely thought that pregame.
Yeah, it was. We kind of figured Thiago was not ready to go to full 90, right? And we're looking at it now as, I want to look at it in the beginning of the game as opposed to the second half. Yeah, the second half, if you could start with a new 11, maybe you start with Thiago and stuff. But starting the game, kind of figured Thiago would not be there. Kind of some of us expected Naby to be out there.
Yeah, I did.
The experience and the pressing and things like that. And we'll go back to it, but definitely Elliott had. I thought he was probably man of the match in terms of. And then the nerdy is here, so we'll pull out the numbers and some of his passing and stuff like that. And that right hand side was really ticking while the left hand side was not. So it
was a huge differential between the two sides. You could easily see the right side where you could see both Trent and Elliott did a great job of linking up with Salah and really being able to move the ball down the field. And what was really frustrating is when you watch the last maybe 20 minutes of the second half, I felt like all the play kept going down the left. And it kept going with Robbo, who I love the guy, maybe one of my favorite players that's worn a red uniform, but he was not fit for 90 minutes today. And having a Robbo down that left side, and Henderson is just not a great player to build on when you're doing this. He's a great presser. And when we get all the numbers and when we do the nerdy by nature later this week, you'll see he was pressing everywhere. And so he was doing a great job defensively, but he's not a guy who's going to drive play down the field.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we missed. And we'll go back to, like Paul has a comment, so we'll go back to that. But first, if you have seen us before, we're trying to kind of like reach out to all the supporter clubs and get some like live footage from them and get those guys involved in the conversation as well. So we have Gally, who's been kind of traveling. Must be nice, mind you.
Yeah, right.
So he was in New Orleans last week. This week he's at Murphy's Pub at Rhode Island. Gally, what's going on, man?
What's happening, guys? Yeah, Gally here from side of the road in Providence, Rhode Island at Murphy's Pub. We left New Orleans. A hurricane came to the northeast. We came back to the northeast, and a hurricane's coming down in New Orleans. So to all the good friends we made last weekend, we hope wish you the best this week, including Rich from the site. But I have some special guests here. It was a tough outcome today, a little bit brutal to have to watch that second half. But I do have some special guests here, and I'm joined by Tommy and John. And I bet you guys can guess which of the two guests I think is a little bit more special once we see him. He might be the youngest person ever to appear on American Scouser TV. John, say hi to the world. Maybe the cutest baby we can find in a uniform today. Tommy, I'm sorry. We're just going to have to bring in the uncle here into the video for a little bit of the interview.
I can't take credit. He's my nephew.
But he's a cute little guy, and he's doing well. He was rooting on inside the pub earlier. He was excited the entire time. So, Tommy, let's get right to it. Disappointing result.
Yeah.
Would have loved to see the squad get 3 points.
John started crying just like the rest of us.
John did cry.
Can't believe we couldn't put one in the second half.
So what was your overall take on the starting lineup today? And what would you like to have seen Jurgen done at any one point?
I was a little surprised that Elliott got the start. Thought Thiago should have came on a little earlier. I was hoping he would get a shot. He never... Yeah, Thiago never really got into the game,
Yeah, it seemed like he came on a little late. We talk often in our chats about Jurgen's substitution patterns, and possibly if there was an Achilles heel of this manager, it's maybe trusting his starters a little too long and not utilizing his bench. What about the shout to what the gentlemen were talking about before we came on about Robo, and as the game went on, do you think Robo was ready to play 90 minutes today, or do you think he was maybe shoehorned back in based on the muscle memory Klopp has to know what Robo looks like in that starting lineup?
Yeah, like Timucin had such a good first two games. I figured he might leave him in one more time. But in Jurgen, we trust. I mean,
absolutely.
How am I going to go against this guy,
Exactly. John here is ready to shake off this umbrella from the table. He's ready to roll with us today. Looks like we have a future Liverpool player here on our hands. He's all popping around the pub earlier, flirting with the ladies, making sure everybody knew he was the star of the show. Honestly,
it could have been worse. I thought we were in for one after that beautiful header goal by Chelsea.
Yeah, I definitely thought that there was a little weak coverage there. I would have liked to have seen a replay to see if that ball actually crossed the line and whether or not it should have been a corner. What about the red card itself? Talk to me about what was going through your mind, how you felt leading up to it, and where we went from there.
I can't believe the ref didn't call it right away. We were all screaming like, okay, that was clearly a handball. No, he would have been better off just to let it go in the net, because then they didn't have to play with 10 men the rest of the game. But What, it hit the crossbar, then he saved it again.
Yep. Was there any point of the match, at any point during the second half, where you were either uncomfortable or worried when Chelsea started to play on the counter?
Not really.
So we have a confident Tommy. We have an excited John. At the end of the day, I'm going to pull this back in. I'll answer for the group. I was a little nervous at times in the second half. There were a couple periods on the counter. I felt like they started to exploit us when we went forward. Had a couple tough turnovers in the middle of the pitch. I think I would have really liked to have seen a little earlier substitutions by Jurgen. I think getting Thiago on, I'll agree with Tommy. I think getting Thiago on would have been a benefit to us. And I think it would have given us a better opportunity to score. That being said, Mo's got to at least get that ball a little better on goal when we had the break. I would have liked to have seen Jota brought that ball down a couple times, or a few good crosses by Trent. But again, I think we were wasteful in the final third when it came to crosses at the byline. And I think we gave up opportunities on the set pieces to really attack. And I think that's something we have to get away from as we look into more of these recaps. So as we wrap up here, we're going to come back to the guys one more time. But I did want to say to anyone, if you get down to the Providence area, make sure to check out Murphy's Pub here and the good folks at the official Liverpool Supporters Club of Rhode Island. Check out AmericanScouser.com. I made sure a few more people found out about the map. The map is the reason I knew about this place. So whoever it was that shared that information, please make sure to comment on this feed if there's great places that you'd like us to highlight in the future. And before we pass it back to Vijay and Timucin for the rest of our recap, want to just one more time say thank you to our guests, Tommy and John.
One of the best chances of the second half was Virgil's strike from 45 yards, and that would have lifted the roof off the place.
You know, I love that point, Tom and Tommy, and I think Fab's shot from distance was also something that I know in our Discord channel we were excited to see. Pot shots from distance lead to rebounds, lead to mistakes.
Virgil was sitting back at halfway, like making sure they didn't get a break the whole half. So,
all right, one more time, John. Can you give us a wave? All right. The youngest American Scouser to appear on one of our match casts. And if we beat that one, I'm not sure how it'll happen. Guys, have a great rest of the show. It's been a lot of fun, and can't wait to see the video later.
Thanks a lot, Gally.
Thanks, dude.
I can definitely confirm that was the youngest guest we ever had on American Scouser. And
at least on our pod, at least on the show, yes.
Brings the averages to like an acceptable level, right?
Yeah.
Since we're the two oldest in American Scouser, I think that like levels it down a little bit. So we'll go back to the confirmed performances, and I want to get to Rich too. That when Gally left him, now he's stuck with the hurricane over there. So we'll get back to Rich as well. He's going to join us. One thing that's you already have your fans, by the way, Vijay, even though they're Chelsea fans, they're kind of like watching us. But yeah, so Vijay, you're the numbers guy. I know, and I want to get to like Baker's comment too, because it was obviously a turning point in the game. Red card, clear red card for you. I know during the game, I was almost like, that's slightly harsh. But at the same time, as you watch the replays, I mean, intent is not as big of an issue there when he's kind of like stopping the ball from getting the nets. And you can kind of see his hand move towards it. So
yeah, I think intent doesn't matter for two reasons. Number one, where he was at the goal line, which means that it's now officially going to be a denial of a goal scoring opportunity, or dogso as the Twitter folks call it. But there's nobody behind him, right? So it's not as if, so let's say you are denying a goal scoring opportunity, but you've got a center back behind you and someone else behind you. Well, that may be just a simple yellow, but he stopped a goal from happening, and he did it in a way that was illegal, and he was the last man. And so by definition, that really is a denial of a goal scoring opportunity, a penalty, and a red card. You know, we talked about this on the Discord. You know, he knew he was committing a penalty. I don't know if he thought he was committing a red, but if you look, as soon as Anthony Taylor comes back from the VAR booth, he does this little square and he points. And Reece James didn't even make a comment because he knew. And honestly, you want to stop the ball. You want to get away with it. But if you're a defender, you do what you can. And so I don't blame him for that. I think the problem is, it doesn't matter whether your leg moves or what. Again, it's not about intent when you're at that point. If you're further up, maybe you can get away with some more intent type conversation, but it's a denial of a goal scoring opportunity. To me, it was a straight red, and to me, it was a penalty.
Yeah, I think you can kind of tell. Robbie at halftime on NBC was talking about it. And speaking of NBC halftime, can Tim Howard just go far, far away and just drop off?
I can't stand him. I mean, I know that. So I'm a born and bred American. And so I still vividly remember all 21 saves or whatever it was against Belgium in the knockout stages in Brazil. He was the hero of that game. But assuming an ex-Everton and United player is ever going to say anything positive about Liverpool is usually a good assumption. But he just fits every time. He never says anything good about Liverpool. I mean, he basically said they got lucky by getting the red. And I'm like, that's just not true.
Honestly, forget about all that. Well, one, I'm not American, so what he did in the Belgium game, I couldn't care less about. Two, it's not only like his approach towards Liverpool. He just sucks at what he does. I mean, when he talks about goals, at halftime when they kind of talk over the goals, it looks like he's watching the sport for the very first time, leave alone the highlight for the first time. It's just brutal. But anyway, let's go back to somebody slightly smarter, Robbie, and what he was saying. And, the guy we're going to bring on next, Rich, is a center back too. And you kind of know that sometimes where you put your ball, your thigh up, which is what he did. You just know the moment it touches your thigh, you're not controlling that. It's going to keep rolling. And you can tell that the moment he senses that in his head, the arm goes up and he touches it. I mean, the penalty was clear. And I think once I watched the replay, initially I was, as a Liverpool fan, the bar is low for VAR, right? I just want just give us the freaking penalty. I don't care about the rest kind of thing. And then once we got the penalty and I was watching the replays, it almost becomes a lot more clearer that it should have been a red card and it was the right call. But like Bickler is saying, I think it almost we were probably better off if he just got a yellow there. And, we could play more of our counter game as opposed to sitting against this low block that we somehow can kind of never figure our way around. And I will go back to the numbers again, because while we have you on the show, which is a rare opportunity, the numbers guy, I definitely want to cover some of the numbers with you. But let's go to our buddy in New Orleans, Rich Kramer, our correspondent of everything. And now in a slightly brighter room than last week, that's for sure. But hiding away from the hurricane. How was it going, Rich? Staying safe over there?
It's good. I was able to get out of my my punish room because I sent everybody else out of town to evacuate for the hurricane. So, some good things come out of it.
So you're the brave soul that stayed behind that. We kind of talked about the game for a little bit. I guess let's get to the main issue on hand. So let's quickly get your call on the penalty and the red card. Do you agree 100%? Or you're, like I say, you're a defender, so you kind of know how that thing rolls.
Yeah, 100% for the penalty. That's without question. The red card, for me as a defender, is harsh. I will say I've got lots of experience with red cards. Usually not for handballs. Usually much more offensive reasons than that. I don't know. When I first saw it, I was, my thought was it's definitely a penalty. We got to get the penalty. But I think the red card, I could see how you can justify it, but I think it was a little harsh. And personally, I think, as you've already mentioned, I think we'd have been better off playing against 11 that came out to play instead of 10 sitting back to attack, because we just have never, ever figured it out. Doesn't matter who our manager is, doesn't matter who our players are. As long as I've been a Liverpool fan, if the team sit back, we struggle.
And I think a big part of that is we don't have, and I'm not suggesting we go and spend a lot of money on this, but we don't have a center forward in the style of someone like Lukaku. We don't have someone who's big and strong and a guy who can dominate the air in the box. Now, the way we play under Klopp, that's not a real huge value or priority, because when you have 11, you have the opportunity to kind of go and get in behind people because of the way we play. But man, when we have 10, it's really hard, and everyone gets real compact. I mean, you saw Lukaku was basically playing like a center defensive midfielder for the whole second half. And so if you've got your striker, the guy you just paid $100 million for or £100 million for, playing as a CDM, that means there's no room. There's no room. And so I think, and I'm not saying go spend 80 million for some Edin Dzeko or something like that, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. And Edin Dzeko is actually one of the guys that I would think of. Someone older, someone who knows, dude, you're not going to be playing 55 games and you're not getting 30 starts. This is not going to happen. But man, the minute they go to 10, throw that guy on and let's go.
So what you're saying is we needed Steven Kalker today.
Oh my gosh. So here's the problem. I'm always nervous about saying this because we got Steven Kalker. We got Andy Carroll. We got Christian Benteke. The list of people we've tried is horrible. So I'm always nervous about even saying it.
Well, really, Steven Kalker was a center back who was thrown out there, so we'll give him a little bit of slack.
Yes. No, he's the only one that gets some slack because the other guys are actually forwards.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, though. I mean,
ones.
I understand
Yes.
that, and we've talked about this before in terms of having a plan B, right? You know, when this is not working, because I realized against Chelsea, the game turned out to be like this because Chelsea was down to 10. But against most teams who come to Anfield, this is sadly the game. Maybe like their striker is not playing defensive midfielder, but he's not that far off. He's just at the half line at most. So this is something we face all the time, and the lack of plan B shows itself. But I mean, I would counter that. And who would you be able to get that has some quality that, you know, we're going to put in a window behind glass and tell them, hey, we're going to break this when we can't score at home? I mean, who will be willing to sign for that? That has enough quality that you and I, you know, us three will say, why didn't we put him in? I just don't think there's a player out there like that who looks at Liverpool, how we play, and says, yeah, just call me when you guys need me. I'll be sitting over here at the end. I just don't know if you can get somebody of that quality. And one would hope, I know you guys are going to laugh, but Divock would be that person, for example. But obviously not physically at least.
Yeah.
I mean, Ronaldo was on the market, but we probably could do better than that. So, I mean,
you know who
we can keep looking.
You know who I really thought of, honestly, and he just signed with somebody, I think in Italy, Olivier Giroud. He has he's very much like Lukaku, but stripped down in all the ways. So he's slow, he's not very quick, agile, but he can hold up play, he can distribute well, and he can get headers. And he's 33, so he's kind of on the back end, but he may still be a year or two away from wanting to be a break glass when needed guy. And, you know, when you're up 3-0 against Burnley, you throw him on for 25 minutes. It's okay.
Yeah, my guess is the reason he moved from Chelsea in the first place was for playing time, though. So, like you said, probably another year or two, he might be the type of guy. But, you know, the window becomes so narrow because if they're old enough that they're willing to sit the bench most of the time, they're also nearing that point where they're no longer useful. And, you know, you really got to get lucky to find them right at that spot.
Agreed.
And probably financially not the smartest buy either when, you know, let's face it, at any given time, he's not even a rotation player because it's not going to be like, oh, you know, so-and-so is tired, so let's put him in. You're not going to start him because he just doesn't normally fit the system. He's only it's like a punter in football, you know, a specialist just come in those situations and that's it. You know, just sit in the car. We'll call you when we need you. Just go have a sandwich in the end. But
okay, well then here's my last idea. I love this idea. We bring Gomez on and we throw Van Dijk as our striker.
I'm actually shocked that we do not do that a lot more in terms of putting Van Dijk there. We have done it in the past, but we don't do a lot of using him in the box at the end of the games. But we don't play a lot of let's load it into the box anyway.
Agreed.
I mean, that's not how we still keep like circling, trying to find that open spot. We just could not find it today. I felt like, you know, anybody who watched the first half, including Chelsea coaching staff realize that the threat is on that side with, Trent, Mo, and Harvey, kind of like constantly changing positions and moving the ball well around. So it's almost like it's kind of like the attention in the first half, Rudiger was getting kind of isolated there. So they kind of like slid over that way in the second half. They stopped that, and we could not duplicate the same efforts on the other side. So this is, I know, mostly second guessing, and I know I can say myself, because I didn't expect this kind of a game against Chelsea, I kind of expected Robertson to start, and he should have started. Did we, having seen the play, even in the first half, he had like some like tired passes, like stuff that we're not used to seeing from him. Did Costas come in too late to the game to bring that spark? Because we didn't need Robo defensively as much. It was becoming clearer and clearer.
I think it was too late. And like you said, I mean, we all love Klopp. He's the best manager in the world, but his substitutions sometimes are baffling. And, if you got a guy you think is going to make a difference, how much difference is he really going to make in 5 minutes? You got to give him a little bit of time.
Agreed. Totally agree.
So let me ask you this, Vijay. I mean, what is your gut feeling? I mean, when I saw Bobby come out, it had to be an injury just because it was, the minute it was in, and it's not even like Jota was kind of like, he was just like, come on, hop on, go in kind of thing. And I was actually afraid he was going to pull something in those 3 minutes because he just literally jumped off the bench, it felt like. But when do you think Jota, having so talk about these substitutions, when do you think Jota was normally going to come into this game?
If I were the manager, I would have brought him in around 60, 65, depending on the game state. Are we up? Are we down? Where are we? But knowing Klopp, I think it would have been a 70-plus minute kind of move. And I think he would have probably pulled Firmino, again, depending on where we are in the game. But if based on how the game played out, Sadio Mane was just off today. I don't know if we are watching the beginning of the end. I hope not. But he and Salah are very similar age, and yet their play could not be any more different. Yes, I think we talked about Salah should have gotten a little bit more on his right foot late in the game, and there were some things maybe that Salah could have done. He's still the best winger in the Premier League, period. And there was a time.
Fair, though, it's Mane's goal.
Yes.
Think about it.
And there was a time when Mane and Salah were basically neck and neck to see who was going to be the best winger in the Premier League. Mane has fallen off. Last year was rough, but I think we've kind of all thrown last year out the window. There was so much craziness going on, so many injury issues. Okay, maybe they didn't do so well, whatever. But Salah still was good. Just not great, maybe, but he was still very good last year. Well, he's back to being great. And Mane's just left off a little bit. What do you guys think?
I thought, like one of the comments are like that he was not so. I felt, it wasn't the clinical Mo, maybe like the second half, that opportunity he gets. Normally he would crack a better shot. But as a striker, you're not going to score every time you freaking shoot. I really thought, like we talked about earlier, it was clicking on that right-hand side. Maybe Mo was not so great, but it was more about the trio over there being able to move, create space and kind of like, shuffle Chelsea defense around and open up some spaces, whereas we couldn't do that. So, which, that's like another question. Did Mane look not so good today? I know he took a lot of people one-on-one and he couldn't get past them. It's almost like some of the stuff was almost predictable. But is that because of like what we were talking about with Robertson? He was not his best either, so automatically affects, Mane's performance.
I'd be curious to see, Rich, what you think. From my perspective, I think in some ways, yes, because a big part of what makes Mane's take-ons so valuable is knowing that right on this side, well, I don't know what side you're on, but this side, right on the other side, on his outside shoulder, is Robertson flying down the wing, and all Mane has to do. So now, as the central defender, you have to be watching the inside to see if he's going to come around and beat you, but you also have to be with the corner of your eye watching some guy flying as fast as he can and be able to go right. And so you need to, as a central defender, if you're turned sideways here looking at Mane, you need to know whether you can, and this is why I want Rich, you're a central back. our center back, but you need to be able to be prepared to go left when he cuts in or right when Robbo's got run down the wing. He didn't seem like he was himself. Now, I don't know that Kostas brings that same game. He brings something different, and I think he would, being fit would have been, I think maybe would have been a great idea to start him, but he doesn't bring that as much. But I think that definitely is part of Mane's problem, is he doesn't have that backup.
Yeah, I think there's probably something to that. I mean, when there's multiple threats coming at you and you're not sure, which one is most dangerous in the moment, you're not going to make the right decision all the time as a defender. I think Mane's game is a little more out of control naturally than Salah's. A lot of times Mane's just quick and dynamic, and some of his best goals have come from chasing a bad touch. And I think that's sometimes the success of his game depends on a lucky bounce here or there. Not that he's not one of the most skillful players in the league, because obviously he is, but he's just a little less under control than Salah is. And it seems like the breaks aren't going his way lately. Some of that I wonder if has to do with sometimes it's confidence, sometimes it's maybe he's obviously still super fast, but is he losing a little bit of his quickness? That bad touch somebody else is getting to before him. I don't, clearly they're both going to decline as they get older, because a lot of both of their games is based on their speed, and we don't keep that forever. But
you don't?
Well, if you start off without it like me, then you don't really recognize.
I had nothing to lose.
My percentage drop has been very little.
Right.
There's a reason we played center back, Rich, and that wasn't because we were fast and agile.
I played center back too. We got 3 CBs on this call.
I'm not really a fan of the 3 center back system, though.
I'm not either. I don't know if we're probably getting in each other's ways too much.
Yeah, somebody's got to go.
So one thing with Mane is I think, he's a dangerous player because he has that quickness and he's so unpredictable, like what he's going to do, like which way he's going to go and stuff. And I think he's a lot more effective when he gets that ball, when Robo overlaps, he can get that ball in midfield. And then when that space opens, you just don't know where he's going to go, and he becomes really dangerous. When we play against these teams that sit back, first of all, that space is usually not there. Even if it is there, there's like 3 guys waiting for you at the end of the space. So, I mean, when you look at
outrunning somebody to a bad touch when it's so crowded.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that bad touch bounces off another bad touch, bounces off another guy, and goes up. But I mean, so numbers guy, we have the nerd here. So break down some of these numbers for us. I mean, obviously the possession part is easy, but with those expected goals, if we're expecting them, how the hell doesn't that happen, Vijay?
So expected goals is always a very confusing statistic, because what it really is implying is on every shot, it's looking to see what the percentage chance historically, based on the quality of the defender and the quality of the forward, what is the percent chance of something for that to go in? So for example, if you're standing at the 3 yards from goal and nobody's in front of you, your expected goal on that shot will be about a 0.8. It's still a 0.8 because there are people like Edison Cavani and PSG who would shoot it off.
Me and Rich.
Yes. So it's still a 0.7 or 0.8. But what that implies is there's a 70% chance that shot will go in. And so what you're trying to do, Brentford is a great example of this. If you want to watch, they've built their whole system around this XG. They've even said, this is a quick side note, they've even told their new coach, we're less worried about, I like that center backs union meeting, it is. They're less worried about results and more worried about continuing to do well on XG, because what that means is it's called expected goals because it's not a guarantee you're going to score that. But over a long haul, you should be able to make approximately that. So for example, if we play this game 100 times, the XG showed that Liverpool had 2.3 goals, they'll score 2 goals. If you play it 100 times, unfortunately, we only played it the once. So in this one, so XG kind of different people have different models. So I'm using one which has a map on it, the info goal. It shows 2.91. So if we play this game 100 times, on average, Liverpool will score 3 goals. We got the one where Liverpool scored 1. And so on this map, if you look, the bigger the circle, the higher the XG. That huge circle in the middle with the red and the yellow around it, that's the goal. So that's just a penalty. But you look, and what I noticed is in the first half, and this speaks to a lot of the whole 11 versus 10 stuff. That's a funny comment too. I did feel like we played it 100 times toward the end. I don't remember if I sent you the second half only map, but if I did, if you look at the second half, it ended up like, I think we all love the long range bomb, right? And like you said, if Virgil hits that bomb, it's over. I mean, this place erupts. But it's not where you make the most of your goals, right? You don't score most of the percentage chance of scoring from 25 yards is not the same as the percentage chance scoring from 2 yards. And what I saw and what I noticed when I looked at the map was we settled. Not a lot of shots that were moved into the box. A lot of shots from further out. I hate, and if you follow the Twitter account for American Scouser, I run that for the most part. You will know I am not a fan of City. I hate City. But what I do notice is the way that they play when they have a situation like this where they're outmanning somebody is they're constantly attacking the flanks and bringing it back, attacking the middle, bringing it out. And so they're constantly moving the other team's center backs back and forth. It creates natural gaps. When they play against 10 men, it's always they just rip the Band-Aid. They do have trouble against low block teams also when it's 11. But when it's 10 men, they find people. So here you go. Here's a look. They got a few shots inside the box, but the smaller the dot means the lower the XG. So what that means is so they're close. There's two that are literally right on the 6 yard box, right? But they're smaller dots. And the reason they're smaller dots is because either there was a defender in the way, the forward, the ball wasn't at a good position. It was either, maybe it was 3 feet off the ground. And so it was a sideways kick, things like that will impact your ability to shoot. So what you see is Liverpool did a bunch of decent shots. They didn't really get any real great shots. Look at Chelsea's one shot in the second half. It's pretty. They had two. They had one way outside, but it was a pretty good shot. It was the one that Alisson saved on Kovacic as he was running down the wing, and it was a great save because it was a one-on-one. Now I know we're not going to get one-on-ones when they're putting all 10 people back there, but there are ways to try to get around that I don't think Liverpool did a good job of. It felt like they came to the box and then they thought, okay, we got to figure out a way to pass it in, and one shot, and not going down the wings and coming back and moving around. Their movement was not as good as it has been. And I think that's a big part of Firmino's game. I think if Firmino doesn't come out, I think he drags people everywhere. I have been on several Facebook pages, probably blocked by every single Firmino hater, because I talk about it all the time. I will not stand for Firmino hate. I will not stand for it because he is not. Yes, there are better finishers in the world. There are a lot of better finishers in the world. But what he does is the way he moves creates so much space for Sadio and for Mo Salah. And in a game like today, we've kind of alluded to, he was the man of the match, but we haven't talked about him much. Harvey Elliott would have been able to find all kinds of room in all of those areas because he was already forward. He would have been able to find room because it's a center backs union, right? When you've got to follow around this guy like Firmino, who's going to run over here and run over there and run back and move all around, you're going to lose him. And then when you lose him, that's when panic sets in.
And I think he's a lot better with the interplay too. Like some of those balls where he kind of like receives the ball and like kind of sees a run and kind of like, creates that space behind him. We did miss that. And that's what I was going to ask you guys, if like, what do you think, Rich? I mean, if Bobby stays, we were talking about earlier that we would probably still see Jota come in maybe 60th minute or something like that. But my hope would have been Bobby would stay. We would actually add Jota into that attack. Do you see that happening? Or do you think Bobby, because he hasn't played 90 minutes yet, will be the one coming out?
Yeah, I mean, based on today's, I think if you're going to take out one of the front three, I think you take out Mane and leave in Bobby for all the reasons Vijay is talking about. Obviously with them having 10 men, I don't know, maybe you take somebody out of midfield and have all four of them in there and drop Bobby a little further back. But even if you drop Bobby a little further back, that might negate the advantage that Vijay is talking about. I mean, what he does playing further up is drags people out of position. he's also, out of our forefront, main options, he's the least selfish. So the most likely to draw somebody to him and dish the ball off to somebody else that has an opportunity. I think today was a perfect game for him. Unfortunately, whatever injury he had or whatever the situation was that caused him to come out probably didn't help us today. I love Jota, but they bring different things to the game.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think if we had put Jota in, let's say, I agree that if with a 10-man deal, you probably bring someone out of the midfield. But in a game like, let's say we were playing against 11, and Mane was playing as kind of poorly as he was, what Jota does is he brings a lot of that dribbling and pace that Mane's not doing as well. Now Mane is bigger on taking on guys. Jota's just running as hard as he can and finding room to get the ball in, and so it's a different kind of style. He would have been perfect with a Firmino to be able to pull people away and to be able to drag the system out of joint. Because what Chelsea did was they took their little block of 8 and it moved up and down, left and right, always in unison.
Yes.
It was perfect.
I mean, like I say, you got to give credit to them. They defended really well. I know we're kind of blaming our guys for not finding the space and stuff, but you kind of got to give credit. That's a lot of work. As other members of the union over here will attest to, that's a lot of work, like shifting left and right and chasing people around, and more importantly, communicating. That's a lot of communication to keep that block moving all together, and they did it well, and we just could not take advantage of, the extra man. Real quick, because one of the comments was regarding the goal. Obviously, you don't know the communication as that ball comes, and never fails, by the way. Anytime you give up a cheesy corner kick, it always comes to bite you in the ass. I knew it the moment it was kind of like we got that shady corner giveaway. I'm like, oh, this is going to be rough. And there you go. Do you guys put that on Robertson because he did kind of look at him first, or is Harvey up too much? I don't put that on Alisson at all, because that's not even what he was trying to do in the first place. He was just trying to flick it to the back. Nobody trying to really necessarily score from there. You just kind of trying to flick it towards that back post. So maybe if you get lucky, it hits the post and goes in, or somebody just taps it in, similar to what Matip was about to do before that penalty incident. But so Rich, let me come to you. Having seen, I'm sure, replays, who do you kind of put that in terms of leaving Havertz wide open there? Because he was pretty wide open.
Yeah, if it's on anybody, I think Robbo could have reacted sooner. But it's one of those ones, you got two teams playing. Just because something happened that we didn't like doesn't mean somebody screwed up, is what people don't always realize. If somebody scored, who screwed up is the first thing everybody wants to look at. Well, sometimes, things just don't work out the way we would like them to work out. He's moving away from the goal. He's not a threat to score. Generally, obviously he did score, so there was a threat, but that's not a threatening situation that you want to overcommit to. What he's trying to do is flick it on. If you overcommit to that, then are you in position to, continue defending? Vijay talked about expected goals. I'd like to know what the expected goal was on him running away from the goal, flicking it backwards into the one spot Alisson couldn't reach. It's just, it was bad luck. Good luck for them. He's making the right play he's supposed to make. It went in the perfect spot. My guess is he wasn't, he knows generally where the goal is. He knows where his other players are. He's flicking it in that direction. He's not aiming for where it went.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that I consider anybody really having dropped the ball on that one. It's just one of those things. If we would have been tighter, might it have not happened? Maybe. Maybe it still happens. He's running away from the goal. How far do I want my defenders running away from the goal on that kick versus, position themselves in a more dangerous spot?
I'm with you completely. I think there's just not much he could do. Plus, like you said, the key part is he's running away from the goal. So who's going to get in front of him to get that ball, right? There's nobody there. And so even if Robbo's marking him, the nature with which he hit that ball, I agree with you. I don't believe he was trying to score it in the back of the goal. I do believe he was trying to find someone back post so that they could score. Right. He was looking for the open back post goal.
Which is the right play.
Yeah.
I think Alisson was in the right spot because I'll give credit to someone else. this is why you buy a Lukaku, because he's such a force in the air. Alisson was perfectly defended for something to come to Lukaku. It just didn't.
Yes. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you guys in terms of like the set pieces. We seem to be, I think, like having Van Dijk back. I really thought, we would, because the year when we won the title, obviously that was like a huge strength for the team. And really, we saw a huge drop last year. Maybe towards the end, we did get some goals off of it and created some chances. But it has been like relatively poor. I mean, we had multiple opportunities today with set pieces that were kind of like wasted. What do you guys, I mean, Rich, what do you allude that to? I mean, is it just like people figuring it out? I do notice, though, that they are letting the defenders get away with a lot more in the box compared to a few years back. I mean, when they were like, oh, we're going to watch this really close, like tugging jerseys and stuff. I mean, there was tugging all over the freaking place today.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a joke. They talk about it, but they never do anything about it. I mean, we got a foul called against us on one of our corners today where I don't remember which player it was. Was it Jorginho pretended or Azpilicueta pretended to have been hit in the face?
Rudiger.
Nobody was anywhere near his face.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I think to the original point about our success on set pieces, I agree. I mean, I thought Van Dijk coming in would make us a little more comfortable there. I haven't seen that yet. He's obviously dominant against the person he's marking, but clearly we don't have a whole lot of height in the team besides him and Matip, to defend set pieces.
Sure.
So if you got him occupied with Lukaku, you got Matip probably occupied with Rudiger. We're not real tall across the rest of the place. Of course, Chelsea wasn't either, but no. that could be a problem when we play some of the bigger teams.
I think one thing, though, that we also have to – one thing that's helpful to remember is, do you guys remember that first season under Klopp? We were giving up – I mean, every time there was a corner, I assumed we would give up a goal. Like, I just assumed we would, and I was right. I don't know, 20% of the time it feels like. So I do think we do have some set-piece deficiencies that really showed last year, but guess who wasn't there? Van Dijk or Matip or Gomez I could list for like an hour now, right? And – I think it sucks that we gave up a goal, but remember, Liverpool has now given up one goal in 3 games, and the goal they gave up against was kind of a fluke against the champions of Europe. Again, I hate saying that, but Liverpool's not gonna give up 0 goals the rest of the year. They're gonna give up goals, and like you said, Rich, sometimes the other team is good too. I remember I heard this once when I was younger about a professional. I guess it was a commentator talking about professional sports, and he was like, the other guys get paid too. And so, maybe against a lower level team, we should be a lot more upset. I hate saying this so much, but Chelsea's a good team. So,
no, they're definitely a good team.
Today, I still think yes, but they got a goal. They're going to score.
I think my concern with set pieces is not as much defensively, because I remember those years that you're talking about. It was almost like giving up a penalty kick when we gave up a corner. It felt like, but now I think mine is more going forward. I'm hoping we get more out of them. And obviously the goal initially came from a corner from the left-hand side. But still, like, I feel like we create all those chances. You would think maybe my expectation was too high with Van Dijk coming back, like we would start converting those. So 2 quick things to address before we call the show here. One, your man of the match. Let's start with you, Vijay. Who do you pick for your man of the match?
For me, it was Harvey Elliott. Part of it is, and this is where I have to be kind of making sure that it's not me. He's the shiny new toy. Everyone keeps talking about how, this is a total aside, but everyone talks about how Liverpool hasn't gone out and gotten any new players and stuff like that. Okay, that's not totally true, because we added Harvey Elliott to the club, and Harvey Elliott's been playing absolutely fantastic. He was the man of the match, maybe along with Trent last week, and this week. What I love, and this is what's so exciting to see, because I don't know what the mad scientist Klopp has under his belt for this, but both in the last game and this game in the first half, because once the second half started, everything kind of went out the window. There's a lot of this where Elliott is flying over to the wing in the half space, and you're getting Trent almost playing like an attacking midfielder. And I can't tell you how exciting that is. And I think Elliott gives you that ability because he can pass and he can run and he can move and he can do all of those things at a decent level. He's a rookie. He's young. He's raw. He's not going to be perfect. But if you look at this, passing chart here, and you see there's a ton of back and forth passing. He's involved in all the stuff coming down the right side. And if they had kept the play there, I really think we could have scored another goal if we had played exclusively down the right side. And we've talked a little bit about Robbo and Mane, and they weren't whatever. But like Elliott and Trent, I think could be a pairing that would be amazing. And then having Salah right in front of him is even better. So for me, it was Harvey Elliott and side note Klopp for man of the match because he's found Harvey Elliott and he's built him into something.
How about you, Rich?
I think it's hard to look past Harvey. I mean, again, he's very involved. He's very confident. He looks like a guy that can make something happen every time he touches the ball. I'm also going to give a shout to Virgil just because I'm a Virgil fanboy, and just the fact that he exists gets him some points in my book. And I think, obviously the second half he didn't have a whole lot to do, but we're longtime Liverpool fans. We've seen the games where we should be winning and we give up a breakaway and end up with a tie or a loss. And every time Lukaku got the ball, I didn't worry that was going to happen because I knew we had Virgil. So just the comfort he brings, the leadership he brings. If he'd have scored that goal, we'd have been done for the season. But I think it's got to go to Harvey with a very close second to Virgil.
Speaking of being a Virgil fanboy, your dog Virgil, did he evacuate or is he over there watching the game with you?
No, my dog, my boxer Virgil Van Dog, is still here with me, and we're gonna ride out the storm together. We should be safe.
So, lastly, the thing about this game to me was all week. I mean, we kind of like constantly reading about all the transfer stuff that's happening. It's like Ronaldo is going to City, going here, went to United, all that kind of crap. And Mbappe was like, and fans just freaking out because we're not signing anybody. I mean, honestly, when I looked today, objectively, if you look at our bench, I thought there was a lot of quality on that bench that we really haven't had before. I think a lot of it is coming from the paranoia that we've had because of the year we had last year with all the injuries and stuff like that. And I really was hoping for a good result because otherwise I was going to have to avoid social media so we play again during the international break because that's all we're probably going to hear. Having said that, do you guys have a gut feeling in terms of anything happening in the next 3 days, or this is what we're going to roll with? And follow-up question to that, do you guys feel like this team needs one more piece?
I can't see us doing anything, but at the same time, you can't rule it out because we've been surprised, and ever since the first Virgil fiasco, they've been pretty tight-lipped about what we're working on, and this has been a crazy window. When we go into this window thinking we still have COVID issues and teams don't have money to spend, we see some of the biggest moves ever happening. So it's still not over. Mbappe still could end up somewhere too for 200 million. So it's wild. Who knows? There could be domino effects from some of those other moves that might present an opportunity we hadn't thought of. The bench, like you said, is way deeper than what we're used to after last season, where I think I was pretty close to being next on the list at some point. So it's nice to look at a bench and say, if something happens, we actually have quality players that can come on. We brought on Thiago today in the second half, serial Champions League and league winner, regarded as one of the most skillful midfielders in the world coming off the bench. So it's a nice feeling. Some different type of forward would be great if we could get somebody that fits that mold. Realistically, it's either got to be somebody young with potential or old at the end of their career, because you're not bringing somebody at their prime that's willing to sit the bench and just take their opportunities. So that's where it would be, some value in one of those spots.
How about you, Vijay?
from my perspective, I agree with almost everything you said, Rich. The bench looked so stacked. And I mean, last year, and I think all three of us are very big Liverpool fans. There were times when the lineup sheet came out and I'm like, okay, I've never heard of that guy. I got to think about, okay, if I remember, I think a guy that sounded like him in the academy, the U18s, we were bringing all kinds of people up. And so you look at that bench and you look at the guys who didn't make it on the bench, right? We were stacked. So we've talked about it, and I hate beating a dead horse. If we could find like some guy who could play on the left, who can run and draw people away from the middle of the field, that would be good. I think like you said, Rich, Mane hasn't lost his speed, but there's something about his take-ons that are really causing a problem. He's not successfully, let me put my nerd hat on for a minute. He's not successfully getting as many take-ons as he did. He was 0 for 5 today on take-ons. He got stopped every single time. He's not succeeding in as many dribbles as he has in the past. And those are the things that create that chaos that then all kinds of stuff just flies around, right? That's the stuff like we've all talked about as center backs. Once the chaos starts, then you're like, oh crap, then panic sets. And when panic sets, easy goals come along. How many easy goals have we seen from Liverpool over the last 3 or 4 years? So many, because somebody's creating panic somewhere, and that's creating a domino effect. And 5 seconds later, there's Firmino sitting there wide open, and he can no look pass it into the net. And so that would be something I would love. I don't think we should spend big money on somebody who hasn't been proven. And I don't think that exists out in the market. I mean, yes, let's just be honest. If we could sign Mbappe, that'd be great, but he's going to Real Madrid. I wouldn't want to sign a guy like Adama Traore or something like that who's going to cost you 50, 60 million. And he's an amazing dribbler, but that dude, I mean, we've talked about some of the struggles with finishing for Firmino. That guy makes Firmino look like a clinical striker.
I'm not a statistician, but his expected goals must be 0 for no matter what situation.
Well, the problem is his expected goals is really high. His actual goals is 0. That's what shows that he's a horrible finisher.
My expected goals from him is 0.
the RXG is absolutely 0. The Rich expected
very important stat.
Always 0. Because I don't expect anything out of that guy. So I would love, and I don't know the whole transfer market to know. So it'd be somebody maybe 21, 22, got a lot of speed. Maybe someone, I remember Ismail Assar from Watford last year was being talked about when they went down. Well, now they're back up, so they could pay him now. I would have loved a guy like him, but someone in that mold cost, for Liverpool, maybe 20, 30 million. Someone you can put on the wing, someone who, like Ismail Assar, is not going to expect to walk in and beat out Salah, Mane, and Firmino. But he'll know his place. And, our guys are getting older. He's the kind of guy that 3 years from now could be a starter. Someone like that would be awesome. But other than that, I don't think anything else.
Final gut feeling. Do you see it happening, Vijay, or
No.
Nothing?
No.
How about you, Rich?
I don't think so. I'd be pleasantly surprised if we do something, but I would be surprised.
Yes, pleasantly surprised is probably right. I mean, I don't know if there's a huge need for it. It's almost would be icing on the cake in terms of kind of like finishing the squad going into the season kind of thing. But yeah, I really do not see it happening either. And honestly, that's one of the main reasons I wanted the good results out of this game. It almost feels like a loss. I can, just our mood feels like a loss just because of it. I don't think we would be talking the same way if it was like 11v11 ended up like 1-1. It just felt like this is one that got away more than anything else. Well, Vijay, thanks for joining us. You can read Vijay's Nerdy by Nature. Do you have anything already lined up for this week? Or
yeah, I wanted to do an analysis of the game because I really thought it was going to be an awesome 11v11 game. So my analysis is going to look a little bit different now, I think, because it's not going to be hard. We shot a lot. We passed a lot because we had the ball for the whole game because we had one extra man. So really it's going to focus on, I think I'm going to do a lot of focus on maybe, is there something wrong in Mane's game? Because we all saw he was not good. So what maybe underlying numbers are showing that there's something wrong? And then, is Harvey Elliott the greatest human being of all time? I think he's in the top 5. So we'll have to.
Well, Virgil van Dijk exists.
Well, top 5. So exactly. Not while Virgil exists, but he's already in my top 5.
We'll find him a spot amongst us. That's fine.
I will be talking about Harvey and how great he's been.
And Rich, Mr. Correspondent of everything, make sure you stay safe over there with Van Dog.
We'll give some weather reports. I haven't been the weather correspondent yet, but since we've got a major hurricane a few hours away from me here, we'll see how that goes. I will say this was a day where I was really thankful for Peacock because I turned it on. Today was a big game and it was 11:30, so it normally would have been on the regular broadcast NBC, and I turned that channel on, and unsurprisingly, it's nothing but back-to-back hurricane coverage. And so my first thought is, oh no, I'm not going to be able to watch the game because that's more important than hurricane. But I did go to Peacock and it was there, and for all the moaning about Peacock, it's got a supporter.
I'm a big fan. Hey, so how close are you guys to New Orleans? A little quick private hurricane talk, because I live about a mile from Galveston Bay in Houston. So,
so
this thing was headed to us until it turned.
Yeah, so I'm on. I don't know if you look at a map. I don't know if you've never been to New Orleans, but if you look at a map, there's a big lake called Lake Pontchartrain, just north of New Orleans. It's got the longest bridge in the world across it, Causeway Bridge. I live right on the other side of that lake.
On the north side?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm about 45 minutes from New Orleans. Most of the hurricane's damage is probably going to end up being, south of us. It's still going to be pretty gnarly when it gets up here, but I'm in a place that should be pretty safe, and we'll ride it out and see how it goes.
Well, good. Well, I'll be hoping it all goes well, and if you need anything, let us know, because I've been down that road before many times.
Stay safe with Van Dog, and
yes,
watch the coverage on Peacock, I guess.
As long as we have internet.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining me this week, and thanks to all those watching and commenting. We're here after every game with different squads. I'll eliminate myself occasionally so people don't get sick of seeing me as well. But have a great day, everybody, and see you guys next time.
See you guys.